growing up here, and then as a touring artist, I see it everywhere. It's not unique to Denver. I mean, I feel like we're reliving the New York effect of finding really trashy, warehousey type spaces for artists to live.
I live in one myself.
Right by Matchbox, and now they're redeveloping all that to an arts district that no artist can afford to live at. So,
yeah.
And what I was also talking about on this mayoral campaign, which I think is so important to any politician, and what's infuriating for me, why I have a hard time wanting to participate in this quote unquote American democracy, is that like we still haven't really taken account for the fact that this is stolen land and that this is indigenous people's property that we showed up and claimed this is now ours. And so like if we're going to try to heal from this generational trauma, like gentrification is, you know, modern day colonization, and it's really easy now to like remove the violence from displacement when you say gentrification, because our food's being gentrified, and gentrification is like this hashtag buzzword, which is awesome that everybody's talking about it now, but we're also like not seeing how violent it is now because it's just like a buzzword. And so I was really trying to like hit point, you know, hey, gentrification is colonization, and we're not going to like move forward if we don't recognize that this is Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute land first. And so I wanted like reparations and redistribute the city-owned land. And yeah, I brought up the point that, you know, there's enough vacant luxury condos, apartments in the city right now to house the entire state's homeless population. So it's not about growth. It's not about like money and investments. It's just about priorities.
Right.
You know, like it's about capitalism.
Yep.
So we could like argue all day on the stage, but like the truth is there's plenty of space now. And like if as artists, we're really good at taking advantage of the things that we have and using our limitations to dream up something new. So I was like trying to roll this campaign like from an artist lens, like, hey, we're not going to live in this box that you're saying has to be the way. Same with campaigning, like, you know, we see campaigns be this really big energy push for policies and maybe human rights, hopefully, and all this stuff, and you raise all this money, and then at the end of the day only one person wins.
Right.
And all those signs fill up a landfill, and all the mailers go in the trash, and all the energy and like money and resources and investment that people make is only about this like temporary campaign. So when I jumped into the race, there was I don't know if you know Kayvon, he owns like Sex Pot Comedy. He's invested in comedy well, but he was the only person in the race at the time, and he had already raised $100,000 for his campaign. And I was like, oh my God, can you imagine what we could do with $100,000?
Yeah.
Like now?
Yeah.
You know, not like when we win. So that was also my like intention of creating a campaign that was using money to pay for things now. So we built ramps with all our money. We fed people with all our money. We threw parties and paid artists with all our money, because I don't have like a box of shitty campaign material like, that I have to throw away.
That is so cool.
And I was trying to prove the point, like, hey, this is a now $5 million race.
Yeah.
And y'all are just arguing about who's right and wrong and what we could do with money. And we have $5 million collectively.
Right. We could just
to actually solve problems now.
Yeah.
Regardless of who wins, you know? Like,
that is so interesting. Because, you know, I mean, that's like you're doing a reverse of what, like, the sort of bottom tier presidential campaigns are doing right now. Because all these guys that are, like, polling at 1%, but they're still like in the debates and stuff like that. And you go like, why are they in there? And it's because they, it's been largely speculated that is just a cottage industry for them now to just raise money for other stuff and just to enhance their own careers. So to think like that you could do that and then actually just put the money back into society in the way that you want to do with your policy anyways, like that's so smart. You're just cutting out the entire, middleman.
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, I'm sure you and I like see these people who decide to run for an entrepreneurial move, and as much as we agree with like maybe what their talking points are, it's hard to trust because you're like, well, if you have all this money for your campaign, like why aren't you just doing it instead of talking about like what you will do?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just made sense to me, but also like and the reality is, which is a whole nother industry complex, is like it's always campaign season somewhere.
All right.
And that's an industry. I mean, like, you should see the amount of mail that I was getting that was like, buy your signs and buy your T-shirts and buy this and buy that. And, like, people were emailing me like, hey, I want to work for your campaign, like, from all across the country. And I'm like, wait, I don't think you understand where we're putting our money, you know? So, yeah, it was like this big, wild art experiment. And it was wild, and it was really hard for me to like play the role of artist and being creative and imaginative about campaigning and about being a politician, and also not like giving in to the formula, which is like you have to get endorsements and you have to do this and you have to show up to all these shitty ass events and you have to go to the debates, like it was a really hard balance for me to like still be me and like still play the game and still like try to reinvent the game too. Because I didn't have the money to like, if I could pay people to work for me, we could have got like a lot done. So I also now see like why people need money to campaign.
Sure.
Because if we threw like the kind of parties that we threw in every neighborhood, like we probably would have won because our parties were awesome.